You know, and I can understand, look, I can understand someone who is under a lot of pressure by the powers to be, and to convince him, you better convince the people, if you don't, it's your fault, they get sick. But look, and I heard him say, I wouldn't have believed it had I not heard him say that if Jesus was here, he would take this shot. Folks, now he knew that if Jesus was here in his glorified body, not only would he not need the shot, right, okay, but he never needed a healing, did he? He had no sin in his body, right? Franklin knew that. He knew that. Why would he say that? And I'll bet today he's wishing he had never said that. I'll bet he wish he could walk that one back over and over, okay? And I know one thing, that really, he lost a lot of people. I've talked to, I don't know how many people that said, you know, we're sorry, but no more support of Samaritan's Purse. And a lot of that, because of that. And I really feel bad about that. I wish he had never done that. Then, another one, yesterday, earlier before Trump gave his speech, earlier in the day, Mike Pence was out. And he was out, he was campaigning, he was out, and he was speaking to a group of conservatives, and he was saying how he had to certify the election according to the Constitution. He had to do it. It wasn't, he didn't have a choice. That nobody, no. You know, we looked all through that, folks. He had all the authority in the world to say, I'm going to postpone this certification until we have a little bit of an investigation into. You had the people from the states right there saying, don't certify it, don't do it because of election fraud. And he had the authority. He could have just said, we're not going to do it now. I'm not going to do it today. We're going to look into this, okay? But he didn't. He didn't. You know, a couple years ago when you had what they call same-sex marriage, you know, the celebration of sodomy, and he vowed, I will never sign that bill when he was governor of Indiana, but he bowed to the pressure and he signed the bill. He bowed to the pressure and he signed it. And when he did that, I was, but you had people, you know, have spent most of their life being honorable, but they became the fly in the ointment. The fly in the ointment. And again, remember, we are all susceptible to this. Don't ever think that we're not. And a lot of times it's very easy to say, I know, look, when I'm on that radio program, I never know who's going to call, what they're going to say. So I got to respond to them there, right? Boom, live. Okay? And by God's grace, I don't mess up too much. Okay? And but anyhow, in fact, I don't know if you heard Friday night's program, but that fella on there, Freddie from China, that guy, he had been wanting to meet me. He'd been told his pastor, and his pastor told him, you know, Mark said, I'm a good friend with Pastor Sanders. And he said, I'd love to meet him. And so what happened was he had some tracts on his counter, and he has a legitimate massage parlor. I went and looked it up first because they told me he ran a massage parlor. You may not believe this, but some of them are not on the up and up. They had one there in Chesterland. When we had our office over there, they were running a whorehouse out of it, massage parlor. And so I looked it up, and this guy has 5-star ratings, 5 stars, and everything is on the up and up. Everybody is fully dressed in there, and they're Christian ran and Christian owned, and it's for people that need body massages, especially folks that work out, do a lot of heavy work and physical work and that. Okay, and so, but he had gotten out of China, and brought most of his family here, but he still had family in China, and he had to be very careful. He was afraid to give his real name over the radio. But the Muslims had come into his store and saw the tracts on the counter and said they were offended by the tracts and started yelling and screaming at him. Took them, and then they came back later and threatened they're going to come to, we're going to come into your church because on the back of the church was, on the back of the tracts was the address of the church. And so Mark, the pastor, and people wanted to know. And I encouraged people to go to his business. So I get over there someday, I'll go there. I'll patronize him because he's a Christian. And shame on the Muslims if they happen to come around. Okay. Anyhow. And so, again, we looked at, well, this guy's maybe not be so honorable. That's Congressman Gonzalez. Boy, were they going after him last night, okay? He's the one, when the time came to stand to support President Trump, he voted to impeach him. Now, guess who it was that got him elected? It was us. He ran as a pro-life. We got him elected. Everybody, I was promoting him on the radio, and boy, I'm going to tell you, he's gone. He's going to be in the primary. He'll be gone, okay? And so, but here he had the opportunity to do the right thing. He had the opportunity, like so many of those U.S. senators that didn't, okay? That they should have stood. I was really disappointed with Tom Cotton. Oh, yeah. They could have, and Marsha Blackburn, I've always really had a lot of respect for her, but they failed us, you know. And I called their office and let them know that, okay. And I think they realize it now. But folks, we're going to be in for a hot war, okay. I'm hoping the Republican Party understands that they understand that this election coming up in 2022, if we still have a country, the Democrats are going to be they're going to be harder than ever because of the voter fraud is going to be there, the election fraud. And I know that now there's a lot of attention going on that, but I hope the Republicans are awake enough to understand that they really have to be very tough, very tough. And like Trump said, we still have a country in 2024. Then you had those, oh, by the way, the other couple was the CEO of Coke, the one that said all of us white folks have to become white, less white. I don't think he knows that we can't do that. I don't think, you know. But anyhow, Bill Barr is another one. Yeah. Bill Barr, you know, he always had a really good reputation. And then he jumped ship 2 weeks. See, the opposition gets to you. They either bribe you, or if they can't bribe you, what they normally will do is they will go after your children. They'll say, you know, your grandson or your niece, this guy's got some problems over here. We need to have that come out in the news. Or sometimes they threaten you with physical harm, okay? And that's how they get to some of these people, okay? But you can't give in. No matter what, you cannot give in. You cannot bow down. And so I was really disappointed with Barr. I lost all respect for him. And then Trump went after him last night, if you heard in that speech, the Supreme Court, the court that calls itself Supreme. Well, I'm going to tell you, he went after them. He said, I am ashamed of them. I am ashamed. I'm ashamed of them too, very ashamed. And there were only two what I consider justices on that court. The rest I consider to be traitors. And then you've got the dishonorable flies in the ointment. One of them, you may have heard us going after General Mark Milley. They call him Silly Millie. That's right, boy. He sold out our military to drag queens. It's like out here, as you know, they're trying to, in the public schools out here, they were trying to bring them in out here. We stopped them. We put a stop to it. But they're not quitting, okay? But here he sold out our military to drag queens and the critical race theory, okay? And so I'm calling the Pentagon Ferry, General Milley, okay? And so we're going to go, I mean, he's gotten a number, and Trump went after him. Boy, Trump went after him last night too, praise the good Lord. But he's got a lot of real generals, real military men that are pretty angry at him. And so, and then, of course, you have Biden, Harris, Pelosi, the squat, and all the hussies from hell. They get all of them are they're the dishonorable flies in the ointment. And then I'm going to finish by going back to where we started here. Where we started. Verse 1, chapter 10 of Ecclesiastes. Dead flies cause the ointment of the apothecary to send forth a stinking Savior. So doth a little folly in him that is in reputation for wisdom and honor. And so that's something we all need to remember all the time. All it takes is one big mistake, and that's why you really need to think out, to think before you speak, okay? And sometimes you got to be careful what you hear. I remember a fellow coming in one day some years ago, and his eyes were all black. And I said, "What happened to you?" He said, "Well, this fellow here he said, shut up," and I thought he said, stand up, and that's what happened to me. So you got to be careful. Sometimes we got to think before we leap, and think out what we have to say. And I know that has to deal too with anger, trying to keep your anger under control. And I know the opposition with what they're doing out there today. Now there is such a thing as righteous indignation, and I praise the good Lord for what I'm seeing at the parents taking on these school boards. Well, I'm going to tell you that I praise the good Lord. They all across, this is what I've been begging people to do for decades. For decades I've been begging people to stand up. Well, it's kind of late now. I mean, we're late, but people are finally starting to stand up. And, like you said, it's better to die on our feet than live on our knees, right? Amen. And with that, we've been coming to you today from Doers of the Word Baptist Church at 14781 Sperry Road, Newberry, Ohio, 44065. You've been listening to us on the Liberty Works Radio Network. You can hear this program replayed at 2 a.m., 8 a.m., 2 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And until next week, we want to say good morning, God bless, and remember, always, always, let's do it. Keep fighting the fight.